We just witnessed one of the largest cascades in the crypto market in a very long time. And during this time, I find it extremely important to focus on fundamentals. In this video, I'm going to be putting a spotlight on utility-based projects like XRP, HBAR, XLM, XDC, and others. But the thing that I really want to get across here is that yes, price action is extremely important, but it's not the only thing that we should be focused on. And when we start to see massive moves in this space to the downside, it's still extremely important to focus on what you hold, why you hold those assets, and where this space is headed. We know that 2025 has been a huge year for crypto. And it's not just based around price action, it's based around the growing acceptance, institutional grade adoption. The regulations around this market are developing in a huge way in the US, but also even outside of the US. And that's only going to continue to heat up more and more. Wall Street is jumping into crypto. Big banks are talking about crypto now. Swift is working with major crypto players. The DTCC is now looking into tokenizing and adopting DLT. I mean, this space is starting to witness some of the biggest moves happening around it at a time where price action is trying to shake out as many players as possible. When we look at the 1-year view of the crypto market cap, we are trading at 3.75 trillion, and just looking at that long view, especially going all the way back to April of this year, we have come a long way. And I understand that this drop in value is extremely significant, but this is just one small setback in the big picture. Fear and greed is back down to 35. This is a pretty significant low. It's just as low as our September low as well. However, what's crazy about this is when I go over to X or when I read the comments, I would argue that we are closer to extreme fear. A lot of people think that this market is done, that this thing is cooked, that we are in a bear market, or at least the start of the bear market. The main thing that I'm looking at when it comes to this market is just the long extended view of adoption. We know that adoption is not going to slow down at all, especially for the next 5, 10 plus years. Because again, blockchain is still in its infancy stages. We are still in the early stages of adoption around a lot of these great utility-based projects. And no, we won't have to wait forever for price action to follow. Some of these altcoins are still up significantly in the last year, like XRP up 360 plus percent, HBAR up 240 plus percent, XLM up 259 plus percent, XDC up 120 plus percent. And I understand that it's been a very long time since we have experienced good gains on some of these charts. I mean, XRP is one of the few outliers that did make a new high back in July. The others really didn't. But I want to stress the fact that we just got through one of the largest cascades in the crypto market in history. And then, yes, I'm talking about COVID. I'm talking about FTX. I'm talking about Luna. I'm talking about every single major crash in the history of crypto. We just completely overshadowed every single one of them. But we're still here. And when it comes to some of these charts, they're still cooking. XRP looks very good here on this chart. I'm not saying that it looks very bullish, okay? But I'm saying compared to that wick that we saw to the downside, this bounce and so far what we're seeing over the last 24 hours is a very good view. We still have a lot to go through when it comes to price action on some of these charts to have them fully bottom out. But the main focus in this video that I'm trying to make is, has anything changed? And the answer is no. When it comes to all of these networks, when it comes to all of these projects, they're all focused on the big picture: tokenization, payments, working with the big, institutional names, disrupting specific markets like trade finance, cross-border payments, etc. And today, even though the market just witnessed a massive cascade, look at the adoption around stablecoins. Look at the adoption around tokenized RWAs. It's consistent growth. We just talked about back in April how we bottomed out, how that was a crazy, drop to the downside as well. I mean, we're talking about 3 months of just downward price action. During that time, we still continued to see tokenization boom in a huge way. Also, stablecoins. Stablecoins just continue to grow more and more and more. We're at $293 billion. Monthly transfer volume is at 3.5 trillion. We just crossed 195 million holders. Again, the adoption around these networks is just continuously growing more and more and more. Even when we look at some of these networks, like the XRP ledger, $364+ million tied back to it. XLM, $641 million tied back to XLM. Algorand, $266+ million. XDC, $25 million. We know HBAR is starting to get tracked, but I'm sure that there's a decent amount tied back to HBAR as well. The main thing that I want to get across here is that big banks, institutional players, they're still tokenizing. They're still tapped in on these networks. They have money tied to this space in a huge way, and that is confidence in this space continuously growing. But also, it's the confidence in the technology. And when you have tech at this level of adoption, when we are hearing these major discussions, that is clear confirmation that this space is not going anywhere. No matter what type of massive drop in this market happens, this space is going to continue to get adopted. We're going to continuously see growth. I really compare this back to like the dot-com bubble bursting, right? We saw the dot-com bubble grow and grow and grow, and then it burst, and everyone thought, that's it, the internet's dead. Let's go back to, where we were going before the internet. And then guess what? We saw the internet boom even more and become a piece of every single, business process. Every single business runs on the internet. Everything today runs on the internet. And that's where crypto is at right now. And some of the big things to focus on and still remember is, for example, the SEC and the CFTC working together to ensure that crypto has the clarity it needs to continue pushing forward. And also for America to lead in crypto innovation and even around investments as well. On top of that, do you guys remember this post from the CIO at Bitwise? Anyone who is skeptical of the future growth of stablecoins and tokenized financial markets should go read these two documents. This is from Paul Atkins from the SEC, and this is also from the governor of the Bank of England, all regarding tokenization and stablecoin growth. Stablecoins are going to eat payments, and tokenization is going to eat traditional financial markets, and it's going to happen much, much faster than anyone can think. And again, if we're thinking about this growing confidence from these big names, and we're seeing that confirmation from these big names that this space is not going anywhere, in fact, it's going to just continuously grow. All of this is based around stablecoins and tokenization, and we talk about these two things quite often on this channel. The main thing is that all of this growth is very beneficial for these underlying networks. What's good for stablecoins, what's good for tokenization is good for these underlying networks. It's going to make these underlying networks more and more valuable over time. But then we also think about Wall Street. Don't forget that we're seeing 30+ ETFs around altcoins getting filed. This was just in one single day. 30+ crypto-related ETFs were filed with the SEC. We also know that the SEC just passed a full-on framework for ETFs to streamline the process. Let me remind you all of this. We don't actually have a full-on ETF approved from the SEC regarding an altcoin yet in the US for a spot-based ETF. That is one massive catalyst for altcoins. I say this because, again, when we are thinking about a lot of these altcoin charts, when we're thinking about altcoins in general, one thing comes to mind: the lack of price action. Altcoins, they barely had a big move this year. When it comes to market cycles, there's a full-on market cycle indicator on CoinMarketCap. This shows us where the market is overvalued or undervalued. When it comes to altcoins, when it comes to the market itself, we're still absolutely flat. It's crazy to think about this, but again, the market itself, even around altcoins, have been completely flat. I've talked about this even when we go to like gainers and losers. I really wish that there was a 1-year time frame on this to really kind of just show you guys that, most of the gains happening around this space, like look at all of these top gainers here that are up 1,000+% in the last month. All of this is just nonsense. We're not actually seeing any major growth happening around altcoins outside of like a select few. And even then, most of these are just playing catch up. Like one of the biggest things that everyone, was talking about recently was BNB. Okay, well, BNB just made a, new all-time high on this chart. This is a nice, big push. It's great to see. However, what does this really mean? Again, when we're looking at some of these altcoin charts, like for example, XRP, XRP just made a new high compared to the high back in 2021. Yeah, it's a little bit of a different story. However, some of these charts are just playing catch up. We're not yet in alt season just because one altcoin breaks out like this. We still have a ways to go. But also in terms of adoption around this space and the growing acceptance of this space, we look at massive names like Vanguard. Just in, $9.3 trillion asset manager Vanguard is considering offering crypto products to its clients, Bloomberg reports. This was 10 days ago. On top of that, 1.3 trillion Morgan Stanley removes restriction on Bitcoin and crypto investments for all clients. It's funny because Morgan Stanley is also a big backer of one of the largest tokenization platforms in this space, aka Securitize. Securitize is backed by both BlackRock and Morgan Stanley, so it's funny to see these types of moves happen. And then last but not least, massive banks are collaborating on plans to launch a joint stablecoin initiative. Look at the names of these banks. Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas, Santander, Barclays, TD Bank, MUFG, UBS, Citi. Massive names that almost everyone recognizes in finance. Let's not forget that JP Morgan is also already collaborating with some big names around tokenization efforts. When it comes to days like yesterday, and yeah, sure, it might bleed into another, 2 days or so, I want to stress the fact that we are in the middle of one of the largest revolutions happening around finance as a whole. I would not get shaken out at a time where we are witnessing such a significant push around this technology. And it's not a push from, influencers or from CEOs in the space. It's a push from the SEC, the CFTC, massive banks, institutional giants, Wall Street, even companies tapping into the space. This is significant confirmation that crypto is here to stay. But again, it's also confirmation that you want to lock in on the projects that have the most real world application value tied to them. XRP, HBAR, XLM, XDC, nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is they became a little bit cheaper because the market sold off. The market sold off because you have people playing with leverage. You also have, a massive event that gets announced around tariffs that scares the market. People panic. They start selling. Liquidations start happening. It's a cascade. But this is not a time to panic. This is not a time to be concerned or worried, especially if you are holding the right assets. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.